All right, continuing on with section 6. Now in the first hour, hora prima, of the day. Remember from the previous section, Pliny had just woken up. His mother had burst into his bedroom. They were just sort of getting started after a short, restless night of sleep, and then a friend of their uncle, who had been from Spain, had rushed in and chastised them for just hanging around. So it's just now right before dawn, the first hour of the day. Ad hoc to this point, the dies, the day or daylight, and we need a verb here, so we'll go ahead and imply an erat. The daylight was, for dubious, we can say wavering, and faint or weak, quasi would be as if faint or weak. So it's just not quite the sun above the horizon yet. And now, iam, with the tectus, the shelters lying around, having been shaken. This is an ablative absolute. An interesting ablative absolute because we have a present active participle and a perfect passive participle. So the shelters that were nearby, literally lying around for circum jacintibus, and then quasatus is your perfect passive participle, having been shaken. So with the shelters or buildings lying around, having been shaken. Although we're always going to need to be implying verbs of being with Pliny. So here we're going to imply assumus. Sumus being we are in a open space or an open location. Nevertheless, a narrow place, an angusto. That's a substantive referring back to loco or place. And once again, to imply that verb of being, we can do erat. In fact, the previous one we implied should have been eramus, just to keep the sequence of tenses consistent. So here, there was a magnus and certus, a great and certain fear of destruction, even being in that open place, but a narrow place, probably packed in with other buildings. Tum, then, visum est. I'll translate this as it seemed good. Literally, it seemed, but it seemed good or seemed best or seemed preferable is such a common phrase. Part of that drops out. So it seemed best to depart. And then our ablative of separation from the village. An astonished crowd. Anontium. Oh gosh, let me erase that. That was horrible. That was supposed to be our double underlining. Going a little too fast with the mouse here. An astonished crowd, vulgus meaning crowd or multitude, follows. Here we're going to have, once again, another implied form of sum. We're going to have quod. It's going to be linked to simile with an est. So we'll start with this prepositional phrase. In a panic, quod is that which est simile is similar to prudence, or here we could even say good sense. So in a panic, that which is similar to good sense. The crowd, still being our subject, preferred another's plan to their own. This is just sort of a broad comment on human nature, that when there is a panic, rather than thinking for yourself, you kind of want to be told what to do. And so even if whatever's being done by the group doesn't seem practical, everyone's just going to kind of automatically follow along in that instance. So the vulgus, the crowd, the astonished crowd is still our subject. In a huge column, agmine can also refer to a battle line, but a giant procession of people. The crowd pressed and pushed on, impellit, those ones departing, abuentes being a substantive present active participle. Now switching to the nominative, referring to Pliny, his mother, perhaps also his uncle's friend, having departed. And because this is a deponent perfect passive participle, meaning it does have active meaning, it can take a direct object, and there's our neuter direct object, the shelters or the buildings. Having departed the buildings, we stopped. Consistimus. And another deponent, we experienced, ibi, there, in that place, multa, miranda, many wondrous things, that's accusative neuter plural, and also many dreadful things, many fearful things. For the carriages or carts, we get the word vehicle from this. In fact, actually, I'm going to change that to a single underline because that's a accusative direct object. The carts which we had ordered to be let out from storage, kind of the garage. Although on a most flat field, they were being moved or led into opposite or contrary parts, opposite or contrary parts of the field. So imagine you have a bunch of carts that naturally don't have brakes on them, just sitting in a relatively flat place, but you've got a violent earthquake, the shaking's going to make them just start rolling in every different direction. Indeed, having been propped up, fulta is referring to our vehicula, having been propped up with stones, and the ne goes with our verb, they were not resting on the same spot or the same track or place for vestigio. Usually vestigio means something more like footprints, traces, sort of imprints, and oftentimes Roman roads have sort of natural ruts kind of carved into them from the wheels of various carts and carriages and so forth. So it could be referring to that, but it was also described to be a very flat sort of field. But either way, just think of it as they're not staying in the same place. They don't have brakes. They're rolling all over the place as a result of the shaking earth. All right, once again, as always, review that while it's fresh in your mind. It'll help it stick in the long term, and good luck with your translations.